Welcome back to the channel. I'm Dan. I'm the co-owner of Bentgate Brewing, a small craft brewery just outside of Oslo, Norway. And today we have a really killer video for you guys. Last summer we drove up about 6 hours north of here to a place called Trøndelag, which is just outside of Trondheim, Norway, where we got a tour of Bonsak Malt from both of the co-owners. In this video, we will be looking at just the malt house side of things, where Tyson walks us through the brand new facility that just launched when we were there last year and is currently making their malt now. After that, we go back to where it all started with their original facility, which we call Bonsak 1.0, and there's a ton of cool information about malting. Anyways, I don't want to take up more of your time, so let's hop right into the video.
So now we are entering Bonsak 2.0. So now we're in Bonsak 2.0, which is the next phase, which is more designed for long-term operations. All right, let's come take a look at Bonsak 2.0. Go ahead and shoot on up. Head up to the deck. So instead of walking up 3 floors up and down inside the silo, now we have a proper platform. So we're walking up top on steep tanks right now. You'll see 2 tanks. We got one tank here. It's called the TLT, a tempered liquor tank. Brewers have hot liquor tanks. We essentially have a cold liquor tank that's just to have enough water.
Yeah.
At the time that we need it when we fill over, because it's 27 cubic here inside the steep tank, which takes 10 tons of barley. In the old malt house, we took 2 tons of barley in, now we take 10 tons of barley in.
Yeah,
and
okay.
I mean, if you're totally honest, if you look at the scale difference, you're like, well, it feels like it's a lot bigger than 4 times the size.
Yeah, it does.
So all the fresh barley from the silos sits over there, so all of the grain storage is in the building next to us, so it's integrated operations. In the past, we had to fill big bags and drive it over and buy it back and fill, and now it's just okay. There's no more filling bags, moving grain. It's just we have interconnected operations.
Okay, yeah, so the grain comes then up this conveyor.
That's right.
And then drops into the steep tank.
And then drops into the steep tank, where it's a similar process here, wet, dry, wet, transfer.
Yep.
But I have a lot more features in the new malt house to be able to rehydrate grain if it starts drying out, to circulate and create a really vigorous steeping process to wash off surface dirt that comes in from the fields and things like that, so I have a cleaner product.
Okay, yeah.
And of course I have more kind of tools to utilize here with the amount of variation I'm adding, how fast I can suck off the CO2, things like that.
Right, okay, so then the grain comes in here, drops. What are all those little, like, pointy things? Or is that where air comes through to bubble?
Every one of those nozzles is an aeration nozzle. So there's 2 rings of air nozzles going all the way around, which does basically the aeration on the sides. But then you see this massive, looks like a rocket in the center. It's called a riser tube, which forces air up through that tube, so it kind of sucks water and grain into that tube, hits the bottom of the Chinese hat, and then rolls back in the opposite direction.
Okay.
So you end up with this kind of rolling effect.
Yeah.
Where the grain just doesn't stay in one spot here, one spot there. So we were talking about hot pockets a little bit ago. Yeah. Hot pockets is not possibly a thing because all the grain has to just continue to circulate over and around and around.
Right, so it helps with uniformity and making sure that you're absorbing water at the kind of rates that you want.
That's right.
Yeah.
Equal and consistent water uptake is important for a muster.
Okay.
We talk about the steep tank in 2 different ways because it performs 2 functions. One is it provides, the water's, the barley is literally having a bath, right?
Yeah.
It's having a bubble bath.
Yeah.
I like to joke and say I made Norway's largest barley bubble bath.
Yeah.
Which is true, minus the fact that there's soap and bubbles. But anyways, but after it sits in water, it's like a sponge. At a certain point, it can't take up any more water. It's full, right? But the water isn't where it needs to be because it has to go through a tiny little hole in the end to be able to get it completely submerged. So at a certain point, you have to just remove all the water and let it sit dry with all that surface moisture on the outside so that it continues to take up and get fresh oxygen and that sort of thing. We call that a dry rest. So in those dry rests, there's lots of metabolic activity. You have activated the embryo to come alive. It's a baby at that stage and starts to breathe, starts to come alive. Then, babies have heartbeats, just like, so it's generating heat, metabolic activity. Right. Alive, you need to remove that heat. And of course, anything that's alive is breathing oxygen, respirating CO2. So, if you don't remove that, then you asphyxiate because then you have no access to oxygen. Same story here.
Okay.
So I have hundreds of millions of barley babies that I need to take care of in this facility. It's true.
Yeah.
It's the art and science of playing God in nature, essentially.
Yeah. And then that screen.
That screen there just enables that barley won't fall through. Yeah. It also helps kind of cleaning off dirt that kind of will settle in the bottom and they drain out water. So then from here, it's in the old malt house, we did dry malt transfers, which means you remove all the water first, and then barley just kind of flows naturally out through the bottom of the tank. But here we do wet water transfers. So the water with the barley gets sent through a clog-free pump going along the floor up through this pipe right here over into the germination and kilning vessel, or GKV.
Okay, yeah.
And then from there, all the water that goes over with it is drained off because there's a screen in there so the barley isn't just sitting all the way in a big, massive barrel drum. Right. It has to sit on something so that you can push air through it. And
so then it's transferred to this big old drum.
So you take it over to the beast. So then it moves over to the beast over here. This is the germinating kilning vessel, where then the barley will sit in here inside this massive manhole. And inside the drum there's a number of different things in there, but the main thing is that barley needs to be separated, otherwise it will grow together. Because you have lots of plants and they all grow rootlets, and what happens in rootlets? They're just looking for water. I will go wherever water is. What do they happen? They just create a knot.
Yep.
So you have to free that all the time so that you don't end up with a carpet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like a solid mat.
Yeah. So does it spin constantly?
No.
Or does it just every once in a while?
We control that.
Yeah, okay.
So just that depends on what stage it's in, how fast it's growing, things like that.
Yeah.
But essentially the rotation of the drum allows for a very gentle, so that, what was a flat bed all of a sudden starts to do this.
It starts rolling.
And then all of this rolls this way, it goes further, and then it rolls further, and rolls further, and rolls further, and then you go back the opposite direction and opposite effect.
Yeah.
So that you're just giving it a very gentle mixing.
Right. Okay, yeah, because you don't want to damage the rootlets that might stop it at that.
When it's green malt, you could literally walk on it and it would not matter.
Okay, yeah. It's quite robust.
It's super robust.
Yeah, okay.
So there's a mat, there's this flat layer here, and then there's an auger on the top.
That's right. So once the barley has gone through the germination process in the drum, in the germination, then instead of transferring it to another vessel to kiln, we kiln and germinate in the same vessel. That's why I call it germination kiln vessel. So even though there's three main steps in malting, in the old malt house we had three distinct places where those three steps happened. Now we only have two.
Yeah.
So steep tank, germination, and kilning in the same vessel.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then it kilns and then the whole thing flips, and then that auger.
Yeah, how are you going to get 8 tons out of there? You're going to scoop it out of that manhole?
Yes.
With our plastic bucket?
With that, scoop it at a time.
Of course, you need a way to get all of that grain out. There's an auger at the very top, which isn't in contact with the grain.
Yeah.
Now, when it's germinating and killing, but then once you're done, then the whole drum goes 180 degrees upside down, so of course gravity, the grain falls to the end, and then the screw auger pulls the grain out.
Or by then it's malt.
By then it's malt.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I said grain.
Yes.
most other people make that mistake, not me. Malt, grain, barley, malt, all the same shit. No!
Yeah, grind the grains. No, grind the malt.
So there's a lot of new possibilities, new features for us in the malt house with this 2.0. Of course, volume being one of them. New product innovation is another. So we have new opportunities for doing other new interesting things.
So then it comes out here.
Yeah, so the drums, you see the motor on the very top.
Right.
Here, that's running that screw auger. To the whole drum goes 180 degrees.
And it drops out that bottom, or like, well, the top now, but then it becomes the bottom.
It becomes the bottom, and then it just drops into this big funnel, let's call it.
Yeah.
Into a transporter, which then takes the finished product over into cleaning and storage. Yeah.
So then this takes them all up this cool looking conveyor, drops it into there.
So this is a finished malt storage silo up right here. So finished malt goes up this really steep incline into the finished malt silo, then it sits there until we're ready to clean it and package it. Rootlets on malt that are dried are highly astringent.
Okay.
So they have to be removed before it gets packaged.
So they still have rootlets here.
They still have rootlets here because they come directly from the drum through
But they're dry, but they're now dry and brittle.
Now they're super dry and brittle.
So then they can just,
So literally the smallest bit of mechanical agitation and they just fall off and they become pulverized into dust really fast, which is why bad malt suppliers that don't have good cleaning systems in place will have lots of dust in the malt because that's just the residual of the rootlets.
Okay.
So it goes through a mechanical agitation process here, which doesn't damage the malts, get the rootlets to fall off.
Yeah, it deposits them in here.
Deposit them in there so we can get them over to a farmer that has good feed quality. And then all the light dust particulates then get sucked off in an aspirator. So we have really clean malt going into the back of the packaging stations. The two bags from here. This is a pneumatic valve which opens and closes this solenoid.
Yeah,
with the whole bag in place.
drops the correct amount.
Drops the 25 kilos right down. We'll need to stand here and move it through stitcher and then stack on the pallet. Just like we did over there, but maybe not lifting from the floor this time, but lifting from center.
Hey there, this is Editor Dan here. Just so you know, I actually had to cut a lot of the really good conversation that we had throughout this entire walkthrough, which includes way more information than we can actually include in this video without making it, 5 hours long. So we will be releasing an unedited walkthrough, so be sure to subscribe if that's something you're interested in. Also, so you know, in addition to that, we have 2 other videos coming. One is actually where we sit down and interview Tyson with his malt lineup, so there's a ton of really good information there, as well as the other co-owner of Bonsak, Bodil, takes us through the actual farming side of it. So unfortunately, in order to make this video less than 4 or 5 hours, we had to put them in separate videos, but be sure to subscribe if you're into that sort of thing. Anyways, back to where it all began with Bonsak 1.0.
All right, let's do this.
It's not raining.
Well, just wait 7 minutes.
Exactly.
Silo 2, which is the round office of the nice view, and so this is kind of command and control central where a lot of things happen at Bonsak. There's a history of different beers and producers of different products out. And this is where we've been running Bonsak for the last 5 years, is out of this office, but of course the production facilities are right next door.
I see some like this stuff, friabilimeter.
This is a you're good. It's a friabilimeter, which tests friability.
Oh, classic. You all
Yeah.
know about friability.
Of course.
Haven't you seen Futurama? It's like how much fry is in the...
Friability tests the ability for grain to be mechanically crushed without major agitation. So
Okay.
essentially all we're testing is how well modified the kernel is, because malting is the process of breaking down complex proteins into soluble proteins, and
Okay.
essentially taking something that's as hard as a rock and making it kind of like a brick where it has little air pockets in it. You modify that starch structure. So we'll take a look through the malting process and what happens there.
Yeah, sweet. Show us, where do we start?
All right, let's start with step 1. because we're leaving the office now and obviously going to the production facility. So raw grain coming in, don't chew on it, you'll break your teeth.
Okay. I was just about to do that.
I've seen people break their teeth before. Don't do that. This is raw barley. It's super hard. It's you know, you would have to mill it down really hard to be able to use it in something else. This is a 15% moisture from the fields. And then essentially what we're going to do now is we're going to start the process by making the barley come alive. So that's essentially what we do in the malting process, but we don't want to grow a new plant because we're not trying to grow barley plants in a food production facility. We are trying to get the malts to start growing and then essentially stop it.
You have a hat that looks kind of familiar.
Yeah, there's a Colorado local symbol here. I'm from the States. I've been in Norway for 14 years.
Okay, yeah.
So we've been running the small house for 6 years. I've been living in Trøndelag for 8, but been in different Western Norway before I moved here. Essentially, this is a food processing facility.
Okay.
Where, you know, we need to have very tight climatic control on the process.
Yeah.
Because malting, much like brewing beer, is very much about process as it is about raw materials.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And so bad barley in, bad malt out.
Okay.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
So our kind of quality criterion for buying grain is very, very strict. 95 to 98% has to germinate, means it has to sprout.
Okay.
Because if it doesn't sprout, then it won't be malt.
Right.
Right?
Do you do like a QC of
Yeah.
like grain received?
Yeah.
Do like a sprouting test and
Yep. All of that germination
Okay.
test is what that's called. The protein is really important. Any damage, weather damage to the grain, we are essentially doing is we run an enzyme factory.
Yeah. Okay.
Raw barley has no enzymes.
Right.
We create enzymes. You need
Okay.
enzymes.
Yeah.
You need alpha amylase and beta amylase last time I checked.
Right, and that is why you mash at certain degree temperatures.
The production of enzymes is also very heat sensitive, just as it is in mashing as well.
Right.
So we create lots of enzymes, but we also destroy them in the same process.
Yeah, okay.
So it's a balancing act that we
Right.
have to play there. Now I'm going to make it grain.
Make it rain!
So once grain comes in, it comes in these big bags. The first step in malting is the steeping. The
Right.
steeping process is to get water uptake into the grain so that it thinks it's spring, living cozy in the soil, and is ready to throw a new plant. So we need water for that. So essentially we add the grain to the water with the steeping process. The biological oxygen demand of the grain is quite high because essentially I think I did the calculations once. I think it's 40 million individual barley kernels go into one batch.
Wow.
So my job as the maltster is to get 40 million individual organisms to take up water at the same rate, come alive at the same rate, grow at the same rate, and all stop growing at the same time.
That's quite the orchestra.
Exactly. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So we have to add oxygen to the water so that you have fresh oxygen available for the barley to take it up.
Yeah.
And then essentially after the grain has taken up enough water, it's about a 2-day process. We change out the water a couple times because the barley will continue to take up water even though it's not submerged in water because there's surface moisture, which is then going into the barley color. And during that time, it's just like being in a concert with the roof over the top. What happens to the air quality in that concert hall? Like everybody's suffocating on their own CO2 that they're breathing out. So we have to suck all that CO2 up and out of the grain because otherwise it would suffocate and die.
Right.
Asphyxiation.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
How big is this?
So this is a 3,000 liter tank or a 30 hectare tank or 3 cubic, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Cubic meter tank, and 2 tons of barley go into that.
Okay, yeah, so it's about 20 times bigger than ours.
Once it leaves the steeping process, it goes into germination process, and that's when the barley kernel starts to really break down, where the proteolytic activity breaks down those complex proteins into soluble proteins.
Okay.
And starts generating those enzymes. And in that process, then the carbohydrate structure on the inside becomes essentially more attainable polysaccharides for those enzymes to attack and cut the chains into monosaccharides like maltose and sucrose and maltose, which is what brewers need for fermentable sugars.
Okay.
And of course, there's the fourth element, which is the dextrose, which are the unfermentable sugars.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what's happening in germination. And then after germination, it spends 4 or 5 days there. And after germination is done, then of course, if you let it keep germinating, what does it do?
Make a plant.
Makes a plant.
Right, yeah.
And all of a sudden, you have an entire barley field growing in the space of the coziest concert you've ever been in, where everybody's just laying on top of each other, because all the rootlets would grow around each other and everything.
Yeah.
And more importantly for the brewer, the distiller, then all the carbohydrates which you want for fermentable sugars have been eaten by the plant,
Yeah.
because that's its energy store.
Right.
Yeah. So we need to kill the malt to stop the process.
Okay,
Every
yeah.
moisture stops out the production.
Okay, yeah. And is it in that kilning process where you can have like the different types, if you will, or different types of malt, or is that just one of the variables?
That's one of the variables.
Okay, yeah.
There's many variables. I mean, there's only 5 things that I get to make malt. That's a cereal grain. Could be wheat, could be rye, could be oat, could be barley. And then I need water.
Yeah.
And then I need air. And then I need heat. And I need time. And how I manipulate those 5 individual elements throughout the process is what creates different products.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, what is he doing behind us? So this is lowering the.
So you're kind of seeing how we design. I mean, malting is, we're talking about heavy densities here, right?
Right.
I mean, 2 tons of grain in at 15% moisture. When it's 45% moisture, when it leaves, it's 3 tons, essentially.
Right.
So 3 tons of wet grain. We use gravity to feed grain down, and we use this chain and bucket system essentially on a rolling I-beam to be able to move laterally.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we use, of course, mechanical force, electric force to be able to move things up, and we use gravity to move things down. So this is
Right.
what's considered a tower malting facility, where we're over 3 different floors. We're on the top floor right now.
Yeah.
We have steeping and kilning on the top floor, and there's 2 floors of germination underneath.
Okay.
So that means that at any given time, there's 3 or 4 batches going simultaneously. Yeah.
So where should we go next?
Now we can take a look over here. I mean, we are in the old malt house. We are at the end of this malt house. It was designed and built to last for 5 years, and it's showing signs of that now. So it's a gravity feed system. You see 2 different floors of germination down there. That's a big pile of grain that came out of the steep yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And what he's doing right now is filling the germination day 4 or 5 barley, which is now going to the kiln. And then all of this grain on the first, it's called the second floor because we're on the 3rd floor, will be transferred all the way down to the 1st floor.
So how long do you do the germination period?
The total process is 8 days.
Okay.
So that's 2 days in steep, 4 days to 5 days in germination, and 1 day in the kiln.
Okay.
Yeah. It takes 24 hours to remove all that moisture, because we are kilning down to 4% to 5% moisture in the kernel. So here in the kiln, it's fresh air from outside brought in, heated up through a bioenergy water to air heat exchanger over there. Just this supply pipe right here, add in fresh air, and then it has an additional heat booster over there if needed to be able to kiln the malt. So the malt kilning forces air through the entire grain bed to dry it all out. And then at a certain point of removing all of that moisture, then we can start recirculating warm air for energy savings. But of course, malting is a very energy intensive process. We're getting barley at 15% moisture, get it up to 45, and dry it down to 4.
Right.
It takes a lot of energy. You don't just open the drain, it's all entrapped moisture inside the barley kernels.
And then you just pull it out that door here?
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's just like a little funnel which goes into a grain, like a flexible screw auger. It's moving the grain with the rootlets over to the cleaning station and then the packaging station. Stick your hand. You stuck your hand in there. Wait, how clean is that hand?
I did wash it after using the
I
restroom.
was just gonna ask, because if you wiped your butt with that hand, I don't want to go in and...
Wait, you wash your hand then wipe, right?
No. Clean hands. This is a clean zone only. That's why you're not allowed to go inside, but you can stick your hand in there and just dig your hand deep in there.
Oh.
I'm guessing it's probably maybe up towards 20 degrees right now because it's sitting in a big pile.
Wow.
And then once that grain is transferred down, then there's fresh air added to remove all that heat.
Is that where you'll be sleeping tonight, Dan?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
It is a cozy space.
Yeah, I brought my full bodysuit.
Yeah, so this is where it germinates, and then it goes back up into the kiln. It goes over into cleaning first, and then packaging silos over here for packaging 25 kilo bags. And we're obviously in finished malt storage right now.
Right.
So, I mean, everything is heavy here. It's 160 tons, which has been going through the malt house annually for some time, which means that there's a lot more tonnage which goes through because, of course, it's wet and gas is higher over there. So everywhere we can kind of save space from physical activity is kind of important because it is a lot of hard work.
Right.
You know, lifting 25 kilo bags up to a 750 kilo pallet, it's 33 bags. And, you know, that last bag, 25 kilos, you're lifting from down here and putting it essentially up where your head is.
Right. Okay.
So this is just a little slide that we use to just bring the malt down so that you're not standing on the floor and then lifting up. You kind of like have different stages.
And then you have the storage back here.
Yeah, so products just stored in different products. You know, ale on the pallet, pills on the pallet, special land on the pallet, Photopia on the pallet. So we have a number of specialty malt products in the portfolio. Of course, that's part of what key value driver in craft malt is we produce malts that big maltsters don't produce.
Right.
We produce flavors that they don't produce. Because craft brewers, last time I checked, they are all about a flavor experience. Craft beer is very much about a sensory experience.
Yeah, because you have lots of different types, right? I see like here it's like honey malt, you have hop shiner, you have the fairy pills, right?
Yeah. So I think we have 10 core products in the range. Distiller's malt, or farmhouse malt, fairy tale pills, hop shiner, Nordic ale, fairy tale ale, malted wheat, Vetapale is what we call it. So we have a fairy tale Munich, honey malt, special N, triple melanoidin, and Fruitopia.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a kind of an expansive portfolio, but you know, brewers have different needs and consumers like different styles of beer.
Right.
If we only produced one style of malt, we wouldn't have a whole lot to offer.
Thank you so much for joining this video. I appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe. We have a video on farming coming out where you get to see some of the really cool toys used and how the grain is stored before going into the maltery. We also have a video on interviewing Tyson about their lineup where you learn even more about malt. It's super, super useful. And then finally, an uncut, unedited walkthrough that you just saw with Tyson where you'll actually get way, way more knowledge than I could include in this video. I also want to shout out the Bonsak team for allowing us to film there and also being so patient with us. We filmed this over a year ago and it's taken that long to edit, so I appreciate your patience. And with that, I'll see y'all in the next one. See ya.